Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. As a lot of you might know, I am currently in the process of rebuilding my 5.3 Ultimotor of my 2015 Silverado. Many people might know for the common issue with these motors are the lifters. So I am currently doing a DOD AFM delete, which is the displacement on demand and active fuel management. And hopefully we can get this thing back together. Up until now, I've removed the intake, the heads, and everything to get to the lifters. And now it's time for the rebuild. So it's a lot easier taking things apart, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to get them back together. So I'm gonna take you guys along the ride with me and see if we can get this thing back together and fired up. So let's get right into it. So the last thing we did was remove this cam. Before we can put the new cam back, we'll have to remove this valley cover. There is a couple of oil journals that we need to block off in order to completely delete the DOD system that fed oil to the DOD lifters. So I'm going to remove this valley cover, put some plugs in, and then we can put it back and get our cam back in. So let's remove this cover and see what it looks like. So we're going to loosen these bolts, and they are 13 millimeters. And then we're also going to remove the fuel pump lifter, which is a 13 millimeter. So these are part of the displacement on demand, and they provide oil for the other lifters that is different than the regular lifters. So we're going to block these off using this. They do have a little lip, so you just put it in and bottom it out all the way through. I'm going to use a little mallet, and that should be perfect. So the mallet was a little bit soft, so I used a regular hammer, and you can just be very gentle and you can hear the sound changes when it bottoms out. So just like that, it's perfect. Should have probably done that when I started. That'll just prevent, just in case that little guy slips out of your hand, it doesn't go down the engine. That'll be a disaster. Okay, now we are ready to install our camshaft. I would highly recommend to have some engine assembly lube nearby. I'm gonna lubricate it as I insert it. That way we know it's lubricated and ready to rock and roll. Mostly on these bearing lobes. We can put a little bit of assembly lube on the actual lobes. We just want to make sure that everything is lubed up. And then as you insert it, you want to go nice and slow. Slow and steady wins the race. Okay, here we go. Slow and steady. Then I would recommend to have a screwdriver in the end of the camshaft. That way you have a little bit of leverage when it comes to lifting it for the very back part of. And we're in. Okay, So we got a new cam cover retaining plate. As you guys can see, this old one's seal is kind of on the flat side, and we're gonna replace it with the new one where that seal is a little bit lifted, so we have a good seal again. So we got new bolts with a thread lock already on it, but we're gonna just be a little bit on the extra safe side and just add a little bit of more Loctite on it. And they are 18 foot-pound torque. Next, we're gonna install a new lifter for the high pressure fuel pump. This is the old one, so if you replace this, just make sure it is exactly the same. I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see, but this one looks like it did get a little bit of wear on the bearing as well. I mean, it's still good and fine, works fine, but while I'm in there, might as well replace it with a new one, and it doesn't cost that much to replace, and you've got that peace of mind. So I'm gonna put a little bit of Loctite on here and get that in there. And that's just sitting on the cam and rolling on the cam, so just make sure it's pretty good. And then we're also going to put some assembly loop on this bearing. It comes kind of pre-assembled like this, so I'm just going to go ahead, drop it in. There is a little oil galley there, and that's towards the passenger side. And that is going to be 108 inch-pound of torque. So before I put this valley cover back, I am going to also replace the seal with a new one, because why not? We are in there, might as well go ahead and replace it with a new one. This one is still fine, it's still sticking out, but I just figured why not, just to have that peace of mind that it's fresh seals wherever I opened up stuff. And the new seal. Okay, now it's ready for install. Okay, now we're ready to put our valley cover back, and they are torqued to 18 foot-pounds. Okay, next I'm going to show you guys how to install this cam phaser limiter. So in order to install it, we need to remove this ring, slide it away, and then insert this in here. So I'm going to show you guys here how to use this locking tool, because this is spring loaded. So this little notch here refers to the pin that is holding the spring. So as you guys can see, that is the bolt that the spring is connected to or is rest on. So when you tighten this, you want to put it in a vise pretty much like this, where this is towards 2 o'clock. We're gonna turn this half a turn loose and keep it in, and then remove all the other bolts. That way we can slide it out, insert our phaser limiter, and then slide it back and insert these bolts again. And then in order for us to lock our spring, we need to remove the tension of the spring. So that is where this tool comes in. So as you guys can see, there is a little notch there. So what you want to do is you want to hook that notch onto the spring. We're going to turn it until it's in that position, and then we're going to lock it with this little tool over here. So you're going to insert it, lock it in there, slowly release it, and then we can go ahead and remove the bolts. So definitely before you remove the bolts, you want to take the tension off that pin, lock it in place, and then you can proceed. I'm showing you guys this because this will be easier to see than when I have it in the vise and it's in the back side. So I'm going to go ahead, carefully remove this and get that phaser limiter in. Okay, so as you guys can see, there is the locking pin in. It's very nerve-wracking working on the spring, because if this thing shoots out, it's kind of a big disaster, and I think it could also be dangerous. So now I'm going to use a T25 socket, just loosen this half a turn, and then remove all the rest. As you guys can see, this is our pin bolt, so that needs to go back where that little notch is. So we want to slide this out the way However, now we need to remove that bolt. And that is the nerve-wracking part, because if it shoots out, it's like I said, it could be a big disaster. So I'm going to do my best to be on the very safe side. Get our cam phaser limiter ready, and you want to put it with the notch side to the inside and showing up. So we're gonna roll this out the way, and then we're just gonna insert it right there. So there it is, installed, and now we just do everything in a reverse sequence. So I'm just gonna put that thing in place and then put my bolt back. Feels like I'm doing surgery, and just gotta be as careful as possible, because I'm not sure what it looks like when the spring pops out, and I also don't intend to find out. So they get torqued 85 inch-pounds or 7 foot-pounds. Now we can release the tension again. And there our cam phaser limiter is installed, so it's ready to go back in. So with this cam gear, there's 3 little holes, and one of them is slightly bigger. That is the one that's going to go over this cam dell that's right over there. So that's how you know how to line up your gear over here. And then we're going to do our best to try to line up this chain that I marked before, the way it came off. However, the chain location doesn't really matter too much, as long as we are on top dead center where this gear is marked with the arrow on the gear. I actually made a paint marker line that needs to be at 12 o'clock. So we're gonna put that on and then try to put our chain on from the outside in. So this was probably one of the hardest and most nerve-wracking parts of the rebuild, is putting that cam gear on and then getting the chain back on it. I had a hard time taking it off, and as you guys can see, also struggled to get it back on, and my worst nightmare came true with that spring popping off, and I had to remove that whole cam gear. So as you guys just saw, this spring came undone off of this sprocket, and that is something you do not want to happen. So I had to go ahead and buy another one from GM. It is around $200, because there is no way you can rewind this and put it back together. If you got special tools, you'll probably be able to do that. So I removed the phaser that I installed initially and put it in the new gear, and now I'm at the point where I'm really struggling to get the chain back on. So I'm going to show you guys where I'm at now and then try to get the rest of the chain off. I've got an idea of how to get it done. It might be stupid, but if it works, I think it's not that stupid. So let's see what I got going on. Okay guys, so this is where I'm currently at. I've got my chain about just past halfway on the cam gear. I got this bolt hand tightened. So my plan is to put in the crank bolt over here, the old one, tighten it a little bit, not completely. I am still on top dead center, and then I'm gonna loosen the engine where I got it locked in on the flywheel, and then turn on this crank bolt, and hopefully this will turn and get on the gear, because I tried for the life of me to get this on. However, I am not getting there. So, and then that's what happened on the last time when this thing popped off. I wiggled it a little bit too hard trying to stretch that chain on, and this thing just popped off. So I'm gonna try my best to avoid that and get this chain on. So let's see if we can get it done. Okay, so there is our locking plate in the flywheel. So I'm just gonna go ahead, loosen one side, and then we should be able to get that flywheel rolling. it worked. So it's on top dead center. This is straight at 12 o'clock. We're on top dead center over here. And now we can go ahead, release our tensioner, and then also torque our cam bolt down. Then we can complete this front section and keep moving forward. Okay, so we're gonna torque this bolt 48 foot-pounds and then yield it to 90 degrees. That's it. Now we got this tightened up, we can release that tensioner again. I'm gonna give it a couple of rotations just to make sure everything is good and rolling and working the way it's supposed to. Everything looks good, cam is rolling, pistons going up and down, and everything we're staying on top dead center with our cam phaser all the way to 12 o'clock, which is perfect. If you're on 180 degrees, it should be all the way at 6 o'clock. And then you want to use a straight edge, put it over here, make sure that chain is not sticking past the block, which we are Gucci. Now I'm just going to wipe off all the surfaces and get it ready for some RTV, because that's going to be the sealant we're going to use right here. This is the RTV that came with the whole DOD Delete kit, so I'm just going to go ahead, put it on the whole surface. The timing cover bolts are 18 foot-pounds. Now before we put on this head, we definitely want to make sure that those holes for the bolts are completely cleaned out, that there's no oil or any liquids inside of it. That can really cause major damage and issues. So blow them out, use a pick, and make sure it's completely clean. Now it's time to install the lifters. You would see there is a flat side to the lifter, and that is a flat side to the lifter tray, and you just press it in until it bottoms out completely. I also did soak all the lifters in oil prior to installing them right here, so they are ready to go. So install all 4 lifters, and then the lifter tray only goes in one way into the block. Let me show you guys. So you see this little notch area, and that is how you know which way it needs to go. Just gently slide them in and you would feel it bottoming out all the way. Make sure you press it in all the way, and then you can tighten it using that 10mm screw. Now that we're ready to install the heads, let's take a look and see what this old heads used to look like that came off the truck. As you guys can see, these ports are pretty dirty. The springs also got replaced, so I got new springs. I would definitely recommend it when replacing cams. Here is a look at the heads being refreshed. Everything looks clean. That's the exhaust side with the new springs, and there is our intake. Everything looks clean and ready to rock and roll. Here we can also see the bottom of the heads have been decked and all the valves have been checked. Okay, the heads are ready to go back in. I did insert the spark plugs except the one in the front. I'm still gonna turn over the motor, and it'll just help a little bit if there's a little less compression. However, I did gap all the spark plugs and make sure they're up to spec. I did attach the ground wire before I insert the heads. That way it just makes it a little bit easier to tighten that instead of having it tighten while it's in the motor. So I can go ahead and insert all these clips that I removed earlier. 1, 2, and 3. I can also go ahead and insert this one at the bottom. That way we know it is secured. Before I do the heads, I'm gonna go ahead and put this pump back in. That way there is no clearance issue and it should be a little bit easier before the heads goes in. So I'm gonna grab the pump and we're gonna go ahead and put it in right here. So we got a brand new pump, that way we know it's good, and also a new gasket, and everything should be good. Just got a weak finagle. Gotta just get it in there a little bit. Okay, so we are just doing quarter turns at a time. Get there eventually. And now I'm just blowing out one more time just to make sure everything is cleaned out and ready for the heads to be bolted down. Before we install the head gasket, we definitely want to make sure that the surface area is completely clean. Can go ahead and put our head gasket on, and then we can drop the head on. And there's really only one way to install the head gasket, and just make sure the front stays to the front, and then obviously that's going to be your lifter area. So make sure you got it on, put it on the dowels. And now we are ready for the head. Alrighty. So we got brand new bolts. Remember, this one is the one with the Allen head. So that one will go in there. I'm just going to start off by hand tightening all of them. Next I'm going to put this fuel pump back, and we're just going to walk it in the same way we walked it out, nice and even. We want to make sure we tighten this even, so I'm going to do 5 on each side and go back and forth. 2, 3, 4, 5. So before we install these rocker arms, I've got assembly loop dabbed in here in this little cap. So I'm just going to dab these points into it and then drop it right in, and I still got them in sequence. So this will be the first one to go in there. When you hand tighten them, you want to wiggle it around to make sure it seats properly. So I'm just going to hand tighten them, and then we're going to move the engine to make sure there's no tension on these springs before we tighten them down for good. So we got one side in, hand tighten. Now I just got to do the other side, and then we can rotate the engine and tighten these down without any tension on these springs. There are multiple ways you can tighten these rockers. I prefer to do one by one. I rotated the engine until the spring was at the very top, and then I tightened it down, and I just went from the front to the back one by one, and it worked out perfect. You guys, we are ready to install the harmonic balancer. I did put a little bit of oil over here so it would help a little bit with the sliding on. And then I also put a little bit of RTV in that groove just to seal it up afterwards, and then we got it all smooth, and let's try to get it in with this pulling tool. Okay, so we got it all lined up, and we're ready to insert our puller and start pushing it in. Okay, I just want to quickly explain to you guys what I did over here. So we got this balancer in about halfway there, and then I took out the puller and replaced it with the bolt, because that puller is way longer than the bolt and I don't want to bottom out. So I've got enough threads on the old bolt, so I'm going to use the old bolt to pull in the rest of this pulley. So it's going to be fun. Okay, I can see it's almost to where it's supposed to be. I got my torque wrench. Using the old bolt, we're gonna torque it down to 240 foot-pounds. So wish me luck. Got it. Now I gotta take that old bolt out again. Okay, balancer is in. Now I got torque the new bolt. Okay, so here is our new bolt. And then the torque spec for this is 37 foot-pounds of torque and then 140 degrees. That is a lot. So 37 should be easy. And then we're gonna have some real fun with 140 degrees. At 37. Okay, I'm gonna show you guys how I calculated 140 degrees. So my starting point is gonna be here where I marked on the bolt and the pulley itself. That is my 90 degrees and that is 180. So obviously we do not want to go 180, and 140 is kind of in between 180 and 90. The actual difference is 135. So 5 degrees more is just a little bit more. So that's why I have 2 dots, and that is my goal right there, to get to those 2 dots, and obviously not 180. So yeah, I'm gonna start pulling, and this bolt should go all the way around till there. So I'm gonna need all the power I have. We're at 90 degrees. I think that's pretty good. Whew. We got to our mark. Whew. Out of breath a little bit now, but we Gucci. Now we can keep moving forward. So this is our new exhaust gasket, so we're going to put that to the side. I'm first going to get this in. Remember, if you remove the dipstick, to make sure it's back in its position, because you will not get that in, because we have to slide that manifold over this dipstick. So let's go ahead and wiggle it in. We got the exhaust manifold in and it's good. Now it's time to put that heat shield back in. This is all done by 3 10mm bolts. And now I'm reconnecting the steering rack at the top and the bottom. They both take 15mm on both sides. Now we're going to put the water pump back. This is the old water pump I cleaned up with a fresh set of seals. Now we're just gonna walk this belt on using a couple of zip ties, and then we're just gonna turn on the crank, and then if all goes well, that should pull right over on the pulley. And that's how you turn on the belt. Okay, next thing is we're gonna put our alternator bracket back in its place, which is gonna be right over here by the water pump. And we can also bolt back our AC compressor, and also a couple of brackets that need to go connect the hosing. So let's get right into it. I'm gonna put in a bigger bolt. I'm just gonna hand tighten that. So before we put in the stud with the 5mm, we are gonna pull up this AC compressor, and that way we can get that stud through there. And then you just turn it until it bottoms out. Just put our nut on. Just hand tighten that for now. Then we need to try to get the AC in its position. Okay, we got that bolt entered. It was tricky because it's a very long bolt, and it is very tight to move that AC compressor around. Once it's in the bracket, there's very little margin for movement, but a little bit of wiggling and finagling, and we got the bolt in. Okay, so now I can go ahead, tighten this nut down, tighten this bolt down, and also this bolt over here. I did temporarily put this bolt in just to line up the bracket, because once that bottom one is in, this kind of moved around a little bit, so I just line it up with this bolt. So I'm going to take it out once we put the alternator back, but I can go ahead and tighten this one over here. That's a 15mm. Okay, so now I'm ready to put on this AC belt, and I got it on the AC side, and then I got it zip tied around it. So I'm going to use the crankshaft bolt and then just walk it around until it pops out, until it pops on, and then I can just cut the zip ties loose and it should be good. Just make sure on this side it tends to walk off. Make sure it stays on the pulley, and that's how we get this belt on. And then you want to line it up from the back inwards. You don't want to put it from the front because this is too wide, it's not going to work. So you want to have your belt on the back side and then walk it on from there. I can connect these water lines to the water pipe. I put my blue tape for the left pipe and the green tape for the right pipe, so that way I know they go on the same way they came off. There's our clamps. And now I also put those rocker covers back on, and we're getting closer to finishing this up. I'm also going to put this bracket back with a 10mm. And now it's time to put back the fuel rail. So it's a new fuel rail, and we're just going to slide it in right there. It is also very important to make sure your fuel rail goes in very evenly. Those fuel lines can actually bend if you do not let them set in evenly. So I just did a couple of turns on each and then moved on to the next one and just went back and forth. Now that the fuel rail is on, we can install our high pressure fuel lines. As you guys can see, it's brand new OEM GM parts. So that's going to go right in here in the middle. Okay, so just hand tighten them, make sure everything lines up and nothing is cross-threaded. That way we are safe and sound. So here in the middle we got a 10mm. And now we're going to use this pipe wrench to secure these completely all the way. These are 17mm. And this fuel line just presses back on and it's got an automatic clip to it. Fuel lines are in and secure. Double checking, making sure all the clips are in. We got our high pressure pump connected, and then also our injectors are connected at the back with the main connectors. I was about to put this radiator back on and I tried to clean out here underneath this cover. It popped off and it is super dirty inside. So I'm just gonna quickly wipe this out and then get it ready for install. So if this radiator is out, definitely be sure to go over it and make sure it's clean. Okay, now that we got all the dirt out, we can put our radiator back. Before I do that, there's another hose I need to connect first. And that's gonna be this one over here. Kind of hard to show you guys, but I need to connect this hose into that hole. So I'm quickly gonna get that done. Now I need to get this little clip over that thing over there without losing it. That's gonna be fun. Yep, I definitely just lost that clip. So that means I need to take out the radiator again to find that clip, because I don't have extras. I found the clip and I didn't have to remove the radiator again, so that's fun. So now I can put the radiator back and try it again. We got that line in and the clip is on, so now I can secure the radiator right there. And before I connect the oil lines, I have to put in the fans, because the fans got little wings on the side that needs to slide in, and if you connect the oil lines, the fan would not go in. We can slide in our fan. That is it. We can secure our fan. We'll tighten it down with a 10 millimeter. Then our radiator itself is a 13 millimeter. Gotta connect this oil line again. This one. And the one at the bottom there. Okay, so we got our oil lines connected up here and also all the way down there. Now I need to connect the AC lines over there. Put them back, and then I'm gonna take it to a shop to get it recharged. And that is a 13 millimeter. Can also go ahead and put these fan switches back in. I'm gonna go ahead and start connecting all the water lines. This one will go here by the thermostat. Oh fuck. That just happened. This hose is supposed to go on there, and that thing just broke off. So I presume I'm gonna have to get a new housing. That sucks. It seemed like it was pretty brittle. I didn't like put too much force or anything on it, and it just snapped off. Okay, so I worked this water line in here, and I'm not going to connect it over here. I'm going to temporarily put it on, and then I'm going to take it off and then fill it with coolant, make sure all the air comes out of the radiator. So however, I'm going to connect it on the other side at the bottom. Okay guys, so I got a new thermostat, and you can't buy a separate housing. It is one unit, the thermostat and the housing. So let's put it back in. Got some clips we can put in. Okay, now it's time for some coolant. So the plan is to fill up the coolant through this hose, so it goes through the radiator and fill up the whole system until it comes out of this pipe. And then once the coolant comes out of here, we can connect that to the water pump, and then we keep filling it until it comes out of the thermostat. And that way it should push out all the air, and let's see, make sure it's purged all the way. Gotta put this tensioner back on. So it's got a little guide dowel, and it slides right in with the bolt. We have to put our alternator on before we can put the belt on. And the tensioner is a 15 millimeter. Okay, and so before I put the intake back on, I am gonna replacing all these seals with the new GM seals. It's got the little guide knob over there, and it's easy to put it right in. Now I'm just gonna do all of them like that. And there's 2 extra if you have a LS that's by any chance a V10, or just extra if you mess it up. Okay, now we are ready to put the intake back on. Remember that harness at the back clips into the back of the intake, so do make sure you get those clips right in. Okay, that's kind of in its place. Okay, so we got the clips in behind, connecting the wiring harness to the manifold cover. And now we can just bolt it down in an even pattern to make sure it seats properly. Okay, intake is tight. Got this hose. And there's a switch that clips in here. The switches really can only go one way. If you need to pull a switch too hard, then it's probably not going to the right location. So it's pretty easy, it can only go one way in one spot. That one's in. There we go, got a nice click. Got a little breather line we connect over here. There we go, so that's in. So as I was installing this alternator, I just realized I can see the fuel rail and everything over there. And usually that's not the case. The reason for that is I forgot to install this thing. So this pad cover needs to go on. I think it's this way. And that covers up everything underneath the fuel line and all that. And I completely forgot. So I'll have to take off the intake manifold again. Okay, now our padding is in and the intake is back on. Now we are filling up our oil filter. Then we are hand tightening it into the oil filter location, and we are filling up the engine with new fresh oil. Then we connect the battery. Okay, I'm going for the first startup. A little bit nervous, but gotta get it done. Oil is topped up. We got transmission fluid. We got the water in. Everything but the cold air intake. So yeah, I'm just gonna give it a quick start and see what happens. So it fired up, nothing exploded, so I'm super happy about that. And now I just need to see why it doesn't want to idle. It just keeps dropping down. So I just need to figure that out. Okay, so I didn't have the cold air intake with the airflow sensor connected, and I think that might have been the issue right now. So I connected it all the way, so everything is connected the way it should be, and I think we should have a pretty good startup and idle. So let's check it out. Okay guys, she does idle by herself. It's a little bit choppy. I don't think it's because of the cam, because it's a very mild stage 1 cam. I do think we do need to take it for a little bit of a tune. For now it idles, it sounds great. There's no chirping noise, so the lifter noise is gone, and it sounds great. Like, as you guys can hear the timing or the tune, it just basically needs a tune to adjust to the cam. Other than that, everything sounds and looks awesome. That's a big one in my books. Okay guys, I got the truck back together and it didn't explode when I fired it up, so I'm super happy about that. It was a very big project and I was very overwhelmed in the beginning, but as I got into it, I got more comfortable and confident. So if you are doing this and you're watching this, building your motor for the first time, just stick to it. It all comes together. Just do your best to put it back together the way you take it apart, and everything should be good. I would also like to mention, before I actually started tearing this truck apart, I had a DOD deactivated with a tune from a shop, so that way it was safe for me to start up the truck initially to see everything run smooth. However, I am going to take it to another shop to get a proper tune and make sure the cam and lifters, everything is in sequence the way it's supposed to be and runs pretty smooth. If you guys find this video helpful, do share it with your friends and family. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, goodbye. So these are part of the displacement on demand, and they so I was about to put this I just need to show you guys this. I was about to put this radiator back in. I saw a little bit of dirt underneath it, and then this cover came off. Okay, so I was about to put this where is it?